Welcome. Now can you see my screen?
Yes.
Welcome to CSC 353. We'd like to wrap up our review of physical security concepts that apply to hardware, software, and services. What you're seeing here is all the rage. You'll notice that it's only 4 left in stock. It's $250. It's a small, intelligent device that connects to local network and hardware components. The Flipper Zero can be used to hack a wide range of different systems. It's been used to change the pricing at gas pump displays. It's been used to gain access into a data center. It's been used to hack into phones and Bluetooth. You can use it to commandeer smart TVs. You can use it to hijack the data from nearby phones using near field communication. Can basically, it's a great USB tool, which means that it can quickly capture the contents of a USB that somebody finds. So, with just a blink of an eye, everything that's on that USB is now on the Flipper. True story, security systems analysts that I know recently certified with SANS essentially used the Flipper to work a penetration test against a company, a partner company, and he shattered all of their traditional, conventional security measures. So this is just one quick example of how we're working on understanding a moving target. And in broad terms, it's important to understand the physical aspects of security as they relate to hardware components, software components, and services. So what we'd like to do is go ahead and pick up where we left off. On Wednesday, you'll notice we were talking about EMI and what a neutron bomb would do and how it would clear out all of the people and the technology systems and infrastructure and allow an invading population to just come in and take over the place. And there are weapons that are designed to pulse electromagnetic interference to a point where it fries anything electronic. In some cases, you see this in movies and such where people fry systems, but it can also impair aircrafts in flight. I mean, it's a very serious challenge. And sometimes it occurs where it's least expected. We were talking earlier today in a networking class about network disruptions around an X-ray machine or the radiology department in hospitals. So EMI, because of the huge draw of current required for X-rays, usually the walls around a radar, an X-ray machine are shielded so that computers don't fry. Of course, when you're talking about physical threats and you're talking about physical threats to hardware and to software and to services, human-caused threats, of course, are part of that dynamic. And so here you see these are less predictable, and most human-caused threats are designed to overcome preventive measures. They're harder to deal with. And of course, unauthorized physical access, theft of equipment, vandalism, and misuse of resources top the list. And that's whether we're talking about a hardware exploit, a software exploit, or services. All right, so we want to just take a look at various physical security measures, controls to prevent or mitigate those issues. So one preventive measure is the use of cloud computing. That's highlighted in yellow because that's too general a statement to be accurate. It is more the case that cloud computing simply displaces the storage of local server data and systems into the internet in the cloud. So moving it into the cloud does not necessarily prevent hardware catastrophes. It prevents local hardware catastrophes. It certainly does not prevent software catastrophes associated with embedded malware, or, it's just a different storage environment. When it comes to services, running a server that provides resources on a network to many users, whether that's in the local network or it's through the internet. In some cases, internet disruption can be a greater cause of problem with cloud computing. So that's why this is highlighted in yellow. Simply put, cloud computing is not a cure-all, but it does help with local physical challenges. So that's why we want you to understand the qualification there. You can have environmental control equipment and power supply. That means the building temperature and air conditioning and such is automated. Of course, there are fire smoke alarms that are automated. When it comes to water, and if it's in the area where there's electronic equipment, there can be cutoff sensors. There are simple sensors that will detect the quality of a lot of dust in the air, or pest control. So it has happened that a bug in your computer means there's actually a physical bug in your computer. True story. On St. Croix, I was called to help resolve a system failure, and there was a large centipede in the system fan that jammed the system fan. It killed the centipede, but essentially the CPU overheated with passive cooling measures, and so that's what caused the system failure. So pest control is actually one of those things if you live near a rainforest. Any questions?
That actually happens?
Yes, it actually happened. Absolutely. I took a picture of it. I should probably post that in the study guide addendum.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah, I think I'll do that. I'll post that in the study guide addendum. Okay, so mitigation measures, essentially, you're looking at, we've talked about UPSs, right? And we've talked about generators. When the UPS is good for a few minutes, a few hours at most. For extended power outages, you need a generator, and it also helps to filter the line. If you filter your network cables and your power against noise, that can help with your data reliability. Physical access control. So this is where the man cage comes in. We've talked about the man cage, restricting building access, having different zones in a building so that not everybody has access to the most sensitive areas. You can hire physical human guards. You can have extra locks and screening measures, card access. Only certain people have cards. You can equip movable resources with a tracking device. You can turn on Find My iPhone. Everybody's heard of this. We don't always turn it on, but it's a good thing to do. Find My laptop, Find My iPhone, Find My iPad, and so on. Find My Mac. You can turn those tracking devices on. Sometimes they're embedded in BIOS, and there's a specialty company that actually will help you find it whenever it's connected to the network. You can control how a power switch is controlled using a security device. What am I saying? A malicious person can simply pull the power cord or turn off the power switch. Go to the breaker box and pull the power switch, right? So you can have intruder sensor alarms, surveillance systems, right? So these are just common sense measures. And then we want you to be able to discuss measures for recovery from physical security breaches. By far, reliable data backups that are routinely performed of the data that matters to you is the most important thing you can do to recover from any security breach, but especially physical security breaches. Let me say that again. Okay, a good backup of your system, a full backup of your system, right? You can use batch encrypted remote backups. Well, that's fancier, but essentially backups. Backups are an element of redundancy. When you think about it, if you back up your system and store it on an external drive, you can basically load it back in, so it's a redundant copy of your system. Any questions?
Not at the moment.
Right. Now, personal identity verification. Has anyone ever heard of a real ID?
Yeah.
So real ID is a good example of personal identity verification. It's a control device that you can't get just anywhere, and it has extra stuff embedded in it after your identity has been validated with known reliable criteria, right? So you can use a central ID management system. That's a real ID system or passport. You can issue a single ID card, right? But essentially there's a federal standard related to PIV. You need to understand that we're talking about personal identification, that acronym, personal identity verification. We want you to explain how PIV mechanisms can be integrated with physical access control systems. So one of the best ways to do this is to take a token or a card and integrate it with the physical security. So you have card readers, swipe cards. Most everybody's been to a hotel where you have a card to access, correct? Everybody knows what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, same kind of concept, except you're doing it in a workplace where the data access needs to be controlled. The one benefit of doing it this way is that you have logs of who's been where. And if you have a security camera that shows, oh, wait a minute, Maurice, he was in this area with the server, but wait a minute, Maurice didn't enter the building. That's not in the security camera, right? So who was it at 201 that entered that door? That's how you catch people. That's how you put them in jail. They're using someone else's security card, but it's not that person, and you have it on video camera. True story. Every year I worked at my former post, somebody tried to pull a fast one. Somebody shared an access card so they could clock in and they weren't at work. Somebody tried to claim that someone else had stolen the laptops and so on. Every year, it never fails. These things are worth their weight in gold. They pay for themselves with just a few convictions, okay? Or, workplace terminations, right? The word gets out, hey, this is nothing to mess with. Of course, you have these different definitions associated with access control, unrestricted areas, controlled areas, limited areas, and exclusion in increasing intensity, right? So unrestricted, controlled, limited, and then exclusion. A restricted area containing a security interest, uncontrolled movement permits direct access to the security interest. So you have to exclude access for most people, right? As opposed to limiting access for some and just controlling access to see who's in and out of there. here you see the different levels of intensity for those different categories, right? So the visitor registration, yeah, here's the controlled area is the entire building, because outside you don't have control, not physical control. And then you have a limited area where there's more control, and then you have an exclusion area where only properly authorized people can get in there. So you see the different levels of PIVs that are integrated, right? You have biometric at this level, you have token card and biometric. Everybody see that? A token card and biometric. Maybe you have a certificate on a thumb drive. That's so you combine and you increase the number of identity mechanisms, the deeper you go into the more restricted area. Does that make sense? So here's the summary for our chapter on physical security components associated with hardware, software, and services. On Monday, we will pick up a review of software-specific measures. Are there any questions before we clear today?
None at the moment.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend.